Hello everyone! So I'm missing the cozy corner, so I found a book that I'm going to read for you. It's called Paddington and the Knickerbocker Rainbow, so we can pretend we're in the cozy corner. This book actually has my auntie's name, Elaine, to me because it was her book before it was my book, so she gave it to me when she was finished it when I was very young. And it was written by Michael Bond and illustrated by David McKee. I hope you can all see it. One day Mr. Brown took Paddington and all the family to do the seaside for a treat. Paddington sat in the front of the car with Mr. and Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Bird, who looked after them, sat in the back with Jonathan and Judy. But when they got to the seaside, it was raining hard and there was a gale blowing. "Some treat," said Mrs. Bird as she held on to her hat. "Look," cried Paddington, "that man has had his hair blown away." "Shh," hissed Judy, "he's bald." But Paddington pulled his duffel coat up around his face. He didn't want his whiskers to blow away. "Let's go in this cafe," said Mrs. Brown. "At least we shall be dry." Paddington looked back at the sea. It was very rough. "I think I shall put my armbands on in case the tide comes in," he said. As they sat down at the table, Mr. Brown pointed to a picture on the wall. It showed an ice cream called a Knickerbocker Glory. "If you can say that, Paddington," he said, "I'll buy you one as a treat." Paddington was very excited at the thought that he tried several times to say it. "Knicker-knocker glory, knicker-glocker glory, licker-locker rory." But the more he tried, the harder it was. "I think I may have a cornet instead, Mr. Brown," he said sadly. "It isn't easy saying Knickerbocker glory." Everybody laughed, and because in the end he had said it properly, the girl brought him an extra large one on a tray. "I couldn't get any more into the glass," she said. Paddington licked his lips. "What a nice nurse," he exclaimed. "That wasn't a nurse," said Judy. "That was a waitress. Nurses look after people who are sick." "If Paddington eats all that," said Jonathan, "he'll need a nurse." Paddington gave Jonathan a hard stare. "Bears are good at eating ice cream," he said. At that moment the sun came out. "I think it's going to be a nice day after all," said Mr. Brown. "Look, there's a rainbow." "Quick, Paddington," said Mrs. Brown. "Look before it goes away." Paddington stared out of the window. He had never seen a rainbow before. "It looks just like my Knickerbocker Glory," he said. "And it disappears almost as quickly," said Mrs. Bird as the rainbow began to fade. "You must make a wish," said Judy, "before the rainbow goes. Then we can play on the beach," said Jonathan. "I wish," said Paddington happily, "I wish I could have a Knickerbocker rainbow every day of the week." The end. I hope you all enjoyed that one. That's Paddington. You might be familiar with him, or you might not, so that might have been your first time hearing about Paddington. Hope you enjoyed.